free from abuse. How can I best help my friend? Somebody tells me they're going through abuse, physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, and how can I help them? Well, the first thing I can do is help them to get the courage to report it, to talk about it. It's the law. It's the law when it comes to child abuse and wife abuse and things like that. It's the law. And then the second thing is to understand the pain that they're in and sympathize with them. Put yourself in their shoes. You know, in the book of Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter 13, it says that we are to never forget people who are in prison. It says we're to remember people in prison. We're to pray for them. We're to care for them. We're to love them. And it says in Hebrews 11, you are to remember people in prison as if you were there with them. You know what the second half of that verse says? Look on your outline. Second half of Hebrews 13:3 says this, and look on victims of abuse as if what happened to them happened to you. You were to take the abuse of another person as seriously as if it were happening to you. You are not to stand by and do nothing, say nothing. You are to act as if it was happening to you. God commands it. God commands us to share the load. Galatians 6:2. Carry each other's burdens. And there's no greater burden than abuse. And in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. Now, as I said earlier, abuse can happen anywhere. It doesn't just happen in the home. It happens at work. It happens in offices all the time. It can happen in the office. It can happen at school. It can happen in the neighborhood. So you know what? As Christians, we ought to be ready to stand up, to defend, and protect the abused and the victims wherever they are. If anybody ought to be on the right side of love and on the right side of the law, it ought to be Christians on this issue. It's none of my business. It is your business. It is your business. If you care, if you love, if you call yourself a Christian, it is your business. You see anybody abused anywhere, believe me, as a pastor, if I hear about anything abuse happening in my church, I take action on it. I'm not covering it up. I'm not going to smooth it off. We're going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it right there because I've seen what God can do in people's lives when you can confront it. Why do people abuse anyway? How many times have you heard me say this? Hurt people hurt people. Typically, abusers have been abused themselves. And hurtful people have been hurt themselves. And ungracious people have never been graced themselves. And you learned that somewhere. And you know what? We're all broken. Everybody is broken. Everybody is broken. So nobody's more holier than thou than anybody else. But you got to deal with it. And you can't shine it on. You can't pretend like it's not happening. You got to deal with it. And Christians need to stand up and be ready to protect the defenseless and the offended and the victims wherever they are. Number 5, very important step that the Bible teaches. Don't confront an abuser by yourself. Don't walk out here and go, okay, now I'm going to go home and we're going to go confront this issue by yourself. That's neither wise nor safe. And you got somebody who's abusing everybody in the office, and you go to that person on your own by yourself, you're asking for trouble. Solomon talks about, who is the wisest man in the world, by the way, talks about the wisdom of doing the difficult things together, not doing them on your own. So you don't confront an abuser by yourself. It's better to go as a team, better to go as a group. Ecclesiastes 4:12, he says, by yourself, you're unprotected. With a friend, you can face the worst.
The rest of today's message is coming your way in just a few moments. But first, if you'd like to connect with Rick on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, just go to